Start rolling then. Hello, everyone, to the ServiceNow Academy session of process mining. Just a shout out for attending Knowledge that's coming up in the month of May next month. If you haven't registered, make sure that you look out for the opportunity to register. And if you are there, then I'd recommend that you attend process mining sessions planned for Knowledge. I do have Dan Grady with me who will be at Knowledge. So, Dan, do you want to chime in to any of these sessions that we'll be hosting at Knowledge?
Well, I would just say if you are going to be in attendance, try to register for them. Some of them are filling up pretty quickly. I do know I will highly recommend the one in which we have one of our customers speaking with us on Wednesday afternoon. Their story is pretty cool. If you want to hear and learn from an actual customer who's been using process mining for a while now, how they've got started, some of the things that they found initially, and how they're scaling it at their organization. It's something that we get asked by a lot of other customers is kind of like, what does good look like from a process mining perspective? And they've got a really good story there. So if you are there, I would love to meet you in person. Stop by the process mining booth and we'll do our best to connect in person. That would be great.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
All right, so today topic of the day is process mining for CSDM, which is Common Service Data Model. And before we get into the depths of it, I just wanted some housekeeping slide here. So if you are here for the first time, these sessions are third Thursday of every month, and they are meant for you to come in, look at the fresh ideas and ask questions and kind of find out who else is implementing process mining and how you could pick up some few use cases or best practices from this session. And this session is being recorded, so you don't need to have note takings on. It's just going to be posted later on the community site. And lastly, for Q&A, we would highly recommend you type your question in the Q&A checkbox and not the chat one, so that we can save your question as a history for a reference later on. Before we dive in, safe harbor, whatever we say here in this session today, don't please take it for making any purchasing decisions. Rely on our official release documentations for accurate information. This is our outbound team. Of course, Dan just introduced the knowledge slide to you, and he is in AMS. Damien is in AMS West, and myself, Roz, based in the UK. And of course, we have our VP Eduardo there. We have a very strong inbound team as well that probably works much harder than us to bring these cool features out. So just a shout out for the great work they do to support us. Today's agenda is I'll start with process mining basics, because some of you who are here for the first time just want to make sure that you know what process mining is. Then we have a very special guest today for CSDM. So he's come all the way to us from Texas in Americas. And I just want to make sure that we offer this opportunity to our audience to pick his brains on Common Service Data Model. And then he'll explain to us what CSDM is, the basics. And the meatiest part of the session today is, how does CSDM work with process mining? Can we use process mining for CSDM bits and vice versa? So do stick around for that portion. We have a 10-minute demo on how to use process mining along with CSDM, followed by Q&A with our special guest today. So here's our special guest. And at this point, I think I'll turn the video on just so you can see him. So Mark, we know lots about the wealth of information you bring to us, and you have tons of experience in the industry. Do you want to give us like a, some sense of the journey you've had at ServiceNow, how you came upon CSDM, some little bits, and that'll help us educate our audience?
Sure,
yes.
Sure thing. But thanks for having me. Yeah, so I've been in the IT space for quite some time. I came up mostly through the development ranks and went into the enterprise architecture space, both really at Dell. That's kind of when I became an enterprise architect. Went to True, HP software, when it was still HP software. And then I actually ended up coming here to implement our APM product, which is now rebranded to Enterprise Architecture. So that was my first baby, I guess, my first product. And when I came here, though, almost 9 years ago, we didn't necessarily have a common model. And one of my challenges as a product manager is I had visions of a very sophisticated set of use cases that depended on all this other data coming from other products. So, we started this CSDM idea. It was called DOS at the time,
Right.
definition of service. And then CSDM kind of took off, and I kind of came over to the BU, now known as Data Foundations.
Yeah.
The CMDB and the CSDM kind of joined together. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm the outbound product manager for CMDB, CSDM, and Service Graph connectors in our BU.
Right.
But yeah, the need to connect our data, in a consistent format, consistent way was really the driver for CSDM. So my product wasn't going to be very successful if I can't tap into data coming from ITOM
Yes.
or IT asset management or service management. So all of these things needed to come together for my product to work well.
Right. And you have this recent article you posted that has 40,000 likes.
Yeah, that was just over 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do a lot of work in the standards bodies.
Mhm.
So I write white papers in my spare time and I write standards. So if you've heard of IT for IT,
Yes.
I helped create that standard and also the definition of what we call digital products. So if you're looking to move to a product-centric operating model, I defined this standard and also publishing a number of white papers. The one I just published was digital product portfolio management, and it's all predicated on bringing the app and the service together as a digital product. That's kind of the basic of the sentiment of what that means.
Yeah, we are very fortunate to have you here in person, Mark. I think it would be once in a decade that we'd have you all the way from Texas here in the London office.
Maybe
So-
every 2 or 3 years, not quite a
Not a
decade.
decade,
but
yes, yeah. So thanks for making time for us. I'm just going to share my screen again so we can be back on the agenda. So we are first going to talk a little bit about process mining. And I know that we've been collaborating for last 6 months, and by now you're a process mining expert as well.
It's been very helpful. I mean, I didn't quite understand it until we started working together, and it really helped me understand from my own experience as a developer kind of what it's doing.
Yes.
And the best way to describe it, it reverse engineers your process based
Yes.
on looking at evidence.
Of course, yes.
That's if I had to explain it to my kids, that's how I would tell them.
Yes. So if you look at the picture here, like if you start designing your process and step-by-step mapping it, you probably would take a lot of time to do it. When I was a process analyst, I would do it that way using BPMN
That's
or
right.
Sparks. But what process mining says is just go to your event log, that's your audit data, and then let the system automatically derive your process map.
That's right.
So-
And the interesting thing, the reason I came to ServiceNow was because it's so simple at the very, very core.
Yes.
It's there's stuff and there's work, there's events, right? There's like tasks and stuff you work against, the task against.
Yes,
That's it at the very, very core of ServiceNow.
yes,
And you're basically tapping into both the things that your tasks against,
yes, exactly.
and that's the simple way of describing what we do.
Yes. And sometimes like when you came across process mining for the first time,
Yeah.
you were like, is it only the process map that it gives me, or is it something else as well? And that's where the other features come into play, right? So
That's right.
some few slides on the top capabilities of process mining that you're already aware of now, but probably the audience may not know fully if they're attending this session for the first time. So you see this process map, in this example, the incidents moving from new to assigned, 8,000 incidents take 11 hours. Then it goes to in progress, 4,700 records, 9 hours. And then here, when you come to awaiting caller, you're like, okay, why am I awaiting caller here? This is a process anomaly. And that's where process mining gives you like this histogram of the spread of your records across the timelines. How much time did it take you? And from there, this investigate button is like a gold mine. So if you click on that, then you come to a cluster analysis where it is doing a clustering of the keywords in the short description field of your incident. And the machine's trying to give you some summarization and keywords on what might be the reason for your tickets going on awaiting caller. Other than clustering, we also have automated root cause analysis. So this is where the machines again doing some correlation to kind of give you a sense of why your tickets are going on hold. Is it because of this support group, or is it because of this channel through which your tickets came in, employee portal, and so on. And then other than that, we also have Now Assist powering our work notes analysis. So if you wanted to know what's on the work notes, that could be the reason for a waiting caller or tickets ping-ponging, then this is how the machine is summarizing with the power of Now Assist your work notes, and making sure that you don't have to go into each and every record one by one. We also have something called opportunities on the summary and insights page, where all the bad patterns in your process are depicted here by the machine. So you see here ping pong, rework, these are out of the box free patterns that we give you. And when you implement it in your data, it basically shows whether your processes are ship shape or it's suffering from these bad patterns or not.
Yeah, and I have an architecture background, and when you actually described these things and showed them to me, I thought, well, these are the you know, the patterns. These are the common patterns of problems that you can detect based on the analysis you're applying to the data, the raw data.
Yes.
Yeah, and that to me was kind of interesting, because as an architect, you can take each of these kind of patterns. If I see this pattern versus that pattern, it tells me there's something different going on.
Yes.
And a different root cause, potentially a different thing to do to fix it.
Yes, it's good to have a architectural lens from your point of view, how you see the
Yes.
bad
Yeah,
pattern
well,
detection.
and I say that's really what the architecture folks are really good at. We spot patterns.
Yes.
We identify that this is like this. I used to work at Dell with a gentleman that wrote Gang of Four patterns and coding.
Yeah.
And so, you know, patterns are really core to a lot of the architectural and engineering kind of acumen. So yeah, it helps.
Yeah, it makes sense to you, eh?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
So I think from then on, we have this multi-hop. So in the previous pictures, we were looking at the state of an incident. And here we are using the assignment group field. So you see how all the ping pongs and multi-hops that are happening on the tickets, you can visualize it, and then it makes more sense to your teams. And then lastly, we have breakdown filters where you could add channel, assignment group, and all these cool sort of breakdowns to filter your process maps, and bottleneck analysis. If you feel that you just want to know the 2 nodes in your process that are taking the longest or are having a lot of repeat journeys, then you'd go to your bottleneck analysis, and it will give you just a good screen summary of all those bottlenecks in your process.
Yeah, and I'm a big Six Sigma fan as
You
well.
are.
I'm a Deming fan, right?
Yes.
So you know, Six Sigma, I've met authors of some of the books like value stream mapping and looking at, you know, how to optimize value streams, looking at you know, the process time and
Yes.
you know, cycle time and all those metrics. So it's great that you're able to provide some of that bottleneck information
Yes.
right to the surface.
Yes.
Look at where your bottlenecks really are.
Yeah, and in Six Sigma, you know, the emphasis is more on process consistency.
Correct.
So the number of steps taken in a process map matters a lot.
Yes.
So here you see variation analysis, where you can see how many steps were executed in your process is also displayed here. So that's variation analysis for you if you are a Six Sigma geek sort of, and you can use that feature. And lastly, we have compare filters. So on one page, you can see how you're able to compare any 2 filter sets. You could compare 2 assignment groups, or you could compare before and after you made a process change on just one page. And this is a comparison statistics, like a summary of what happened after you improved your processes, all greens. So that's kind of an evidence of how valuable process improvement is.
Yeah, by the way, I call it the Visine chart. Anytime where you have red in there,
Yes.
everybody wants to get the red out, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Yes.
taking Visine in your eyes, get the red out.
Yes, in a process mapping way, it's a good analogy. And this is a multi-dimensional process map where you bring trial tables onto the same page as your parent table, and you're able to then understand the relationships and what's going on, why your records are being hung up at a certain state. So that's all about the main capabilities of process mining. And did you know that if you wanted to try this for free, we've made it so simple, you don't have to install any plugins anymore. In Xanadu, we already have those installed for you. All you need to to do is go into the evaluation project. From there, you can run process mining for 3,600 records. If you are pre-Xanadu, then you could clone data in subprod. There's a blog post out there which has a video in it. So do make sure that you try it out and read it and try and kind of play around in your production environment.
So there's like a freemium version. You can kind of try it
Yes.
before you buy it.
Yes,
I like that.
absolutely. All right, so that was my turf. Now we go to your turf.
Yeah. All right.
So what if I've never known anything about CSDM and I am attending this session today?
Yeah.
How would you explain what CSDM is?
Yes. Yes.
All
All
right.
right. So CSDM basics, and you'll have to excuse me, you know, I might get a little technical, so just bring me back.
Yes.
So CSDM is really describing the data model, which connects all of our products together in what is common across those data models. I call it the minimum viable model in order to connect the dots between all these products that you see here on this chart here, and how they are possibly able to connect together.
Right.
And when we started, like 8 years ago now, we didn't have this consistency. Every product was on its own little island, even though we were on the same exact platform, right? There was no way to ensure connectivity between them because customers were able to configure them differently and use a different common model based on whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
Or none at all.
Right.
So the real goal, the value to me in having ServiceNow, not only as a platform, not only because it's low code, but because of the shared data.
Right.
But the need to have that shared being baked into the products, we've been working on with the product managers to evolve old products that maybe weren't designed to ensure that the data structure was going to be shared, right? And then the new products that we were creating are all now CSDM compliant, which means that, you know, if somebody wants to create a new workspace management tool, that they're using the same common data that we actually list and document in CSDM.
Right. So it comes out of the box sort of in that.
It is, you know, and still it is guidance for customers because not every customer needs to use our newer stuff, right? They might be just using service management and that's it, right? Yeah. They can still use obviously process mining, but if they want to use like vulnerability response or SecOps or DevOps or, you know, digital product release, you know, we got a lot of products now.
Yes.
But they're all designed in order to take advantage or contribute data to CSDM.
Right. So when you summarize what is CSDM in just a simple language, would it be fair to say that it is mapping all your CIs to a service?
That's the main emphasis for it from the very beginning, because we have a CMDB, we have service management, and even those two are hard to connect.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So that was sort of the impetus to create the first, you know, foray. But thinking about enterprise architecture, what about business apps? What about capabilities? You know, strategic planning, all of the stuff that we do that kind of outside those boundaries, they still have to connect.
Right.
So how do they connect? So the CSDM is sort of an answer. And every product has something called a product view that describes the data elements they use and the ones they create.
Right. So it's not just what comes in the baseline. You can also add more on top of it.
That's right. And every product will extend things. Like one of the things we just added is a new CI to capture business process activity in the process modeling side. So that's kind of interesting. So the model always, I would say, evolves as we go into new spaces.
Right.
And so we're coming out with CSDM 5, as a matter of fact, and that's what we'll be presenting today. So
yes. So I think before we go to CSDM 5, what you're trying to say is that it has multiple layers here. So
that's right. And we basically, at the core of the onion, so to speak, is the CMDB, because operationally, this is your system of record for understanding what's running in your data center, in the cloud data center. And that's really good, but it has limited value until you understand who is using that. Is this for a process in your factory? If you're, making automobiles, is this for an employee to get their job done, like in HR? Or is this actually part of the product that you sell? If you're banking, this could be critical for money transactions, right?
Right.
So that context comes into play in that service level. So that service context provides who is consuming something, down to the individual person or customer, right?
Yes.
That gives you precision. To me, it's all about, instead of spamming the entire organization when something's down, only spam the people that are impacted, that
Yes.
use that application, right? It's that simple in thinking. So if a network device goes down in a building, I'd only have to really let those people know that are impacted, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that precision is what I've always lacked in a lot of the companies I worked for. I remember at Dell, I would get a notification, Ariba's going down. I've never touched Ariba. I
Right.
never want to touch Ariba. It's not my job, right? But I
Yes.
got the notification anyway.
Right.
So Service Graph gives us that CSDM maturity, which is the service the service that providers,
Yeah.
the ones that manage and maintain infrastructure, for example, and the consumers of that infrastructure as the group of employees that are using the apps on those servers and so forth. So
Right. So that's a good kind of consolidating and connecting
that's right.
relationships between the stakeholders and
That's right.
PIs.
Because
Okay.
service management, one of the things Incident has, for example, is 3 key fields. We have the service, the offering, and then the CI.
Right.
I can't tell you how many customers don't have the CI on there.
Right.
And that's the best practice that we're trying to promote and make sure that you have that full level of detail. Because when you identify the CI, there could be other services impacted.
Right. Yes.
They just haven't called you yet,
Of course.
right? So this helps to complete the picture, that completes the analysis story of what those impacts are. And it also, CSDM connects the planning activities, like my old job. When I used to be at Dell, and I had to bring Alienware into Dell as an acquisition. So I had to plan that out, right? I had to understand what we merged, what we got rid of, what was duplicate. So we had to have the full picture, 2 companies coming together into one.
Yeah, and that makes it more important, the significance of mapping it all. It's not
That's
a
right.
wasted effort in that way.
Not at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
And your planning basically comes from that level of detail, right?
Yes.
If you don't have the detail, you can't do good planning. So that's my history and my job, and that's where CSDM kind of comes in. So all the jobs we do in IT now rely on common data, where common is appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the next interesting layer is that we're building, you mentioned it earlier, are all of this Gen AI and LLMs that we're building that uses all of this information. But if it's connected, if it's information on islands, how are we possibly going to connect it?
Right.
I was chatting on Messenger with David Wright, because he actually wrote a nice little article recently, but he left out the data context, which is to say, if we're in HR, if we have an HR question for a bot, and I ask a question and I'm in one country, and you ask a question and you're in a different country, we're going to get different results. But what if I'm asking a question on your behalf?
I see. All right.
And what if the country information is not part of the equation?
Right.
It's going to be all wrong.
Yes.
So we have to have the same country information for the bots to work, right? For the AI agents to work.
Yes.
So we're seeing a much bigger emphasis on needing this data to be able to do knowledge graphs properly.
Right. So on this slide, Mark, the CMDB is the actual physical database, but service graph and knowledge graph are conceptual in that way, right?
Well, they're all part of the data model. The best way to classify a traditional CMDB is it was created originally for managing what's in a data center. We've extended that because it now also manages resources in the cloud.
Right.
But it's really very narrow in terms of its original intent, which is operational purposes for what am I running with now.
Right.
It never really incorporated service management properly until we kind of brought those worlds together.
Right.
So the service management world is where Service Graph comes in, but we added more to it in terms of things like business capability and business apps, or other elements like location hierarchies.
Right. So they aren't really any plugins per se, because people confuse, oh, can I now download a Service Graph plugin?
Yeah, so Service Graph is a concept of the fact that you now have the service data to support how the resources in the CMDB are used.
Right.
And who owns them. Right. To me, this is going into a little bit, future, but we're moving to a product-centric model at the core, which is to mean, I am the product provider, you are the product consumer.
Right.
And figuring that out. Now, the products interact through services. That's how we work now, is that somebody stands up a server with some apps on it, and then you interact with it. That's a service.
Right. So you need to have that philosophical understanding rather than just trying to say, oh, can I install this plugin
and
make it work, right?
Yeah, so Service Graph is conceptual. We do have Service Graph connectors.
Yeah.
And the story behind that one is we had to refactor a lot of old connectors to third parties that did not follow the CSDM model.
Right.
And so they didn't use the IRE, they didn't put the right data in the right place, right?
Right.
So it was a bit of a mess. It was like a free-for-all.
Right.
So we now have 75 Service Graph connectors that have been refactored. They're in the store,
Right.
and you can just download them, get them up and running in as little as 7 days in production.
Right. That's good to know.
New data sources,
I
yeah.
see,
So it's
right.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And Knowledge Graph is just really, you know, putting the knowledge level details on top of all of that information. So, and extending it into other sources of data. For example, an HR management system or Epic if you're healthcare. There's a Epic healthcare system.
Right.
Could be part of the Knowledge Graph.
Right. Okay. Makes sense to me. And then, yeah, so from my point of view, if I were new to CSDM, so you mentioned to me earlier on that these are the 3 pillars.
That's right.
If you can explain a bit more.
Yeah, so one of the problems I found when I came in and started to manage the CMDB was most organizations just cared about bringing data in. I just met with a customer today.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention their name,
Okay.
but they basically turned on their discovery stuff and all of a sudden they have 22 million CIs.
Wow. Right.
But they were like, well, you didn't put a process in there to assign ownership to any of them. So they don't know who to ask to say if it's right or not.
Right.
Or they didn't put a governance process in there to ensure that when do you delete this information? When do you archive it? And they never have.
Ooh.
They've never archived anything. So there's a lot of noise in the system, right? So these are the 3 pillars I talk about because a lot of folks forget the governance stuff and they basically go right into collecting information and then it becomes raw, you know, it's stale, doesn't really matter anymore. It's you know, it becomes untrusted. You're looking at data that's not relevant when people go in and use it for their jobs, which is insight. And insight is really all the products that we sell that use this data day to day.
Right.
Incident management can't do a great job until you have the CI data and all the other, you know, context around the CSDM model.
Right. So what you're suggesting here is ingest the data.
That's right.
Make sure you have a governance in place.
That's right.
And then in the end, make sure that you use it for insights later on.
That's right. And our products, you know, we have so many on the market now. I mean, it's crazy. It's hard to keep up because our portfolio is getting bigger every day. And then we have partners developing stuff too. So, but the utility, the value of this data just goes up exponentially almost all the time. And you know, process mining, the stuff you're doing is kind of cool. You know, as we went through our process, it's like, wow, we found some opportunities where we can, you know, find those patterns and we can find those issues that can be addressed by poor governance process or poor ingest process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is finally CSDM 5.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more coming. Okay, so this is just a bit of a taste on some of the final stuff we're going to be releasing at Knowledge 2025.
All right.
So, but basically we added a new ideation and strategy area so that you can trace ideas all the way through design and planning, building and integrating things. And the service delivery, which is really all about managing the CMDBs and what you're operating on.
Yeah.
And then the service consumption. It's the people that use this technology and either internally or in, you know, as part of your product that you're delivering to end customers.
Right. So I remember the visual, you know, where you have all these colors in CSDM 4.0. Now, what's different in 5.0, like in a way?
Yeah. So we've, you know, the best way to think about version to version is that we just keep adding more stuff.
All right. Okay.
We do change a few things. Okay. So I'll point some of those out. So, but we added a whole new ideation and strategy domain to capture, you know, the ideas that your business has for products or services that you're building for customers or internally.
Right.
And then we've also added some things like value streams to our data model.
All right.
So now, you know, we talked about optimization of value streams. That's now out of the box and part of the database model. So, and we have plans to use them in operational use cases as well as planning use cases.
Right.
And you guys can probably provide some data for that.
Yes, we could mine everything.
Yeah, but that's how it works, is that value streams has been part of the SPM portfolio for some time.
Yes.
Nobody else could use it until you bought SPM.
Right.
By bringing it to be common, now you could use it.
Of course.
And show metrics in a value stream format, right? So pretty cool.
Right.
Design and planning, we've done a few things in there, nothing too new in there. Build and integrate, nothing too new there, but we've added the repositories and pipeline information that comes from your CI/CD, your developer teams, and what they're working on and what they're going to deliver. Service delivery is probably one of the areas that we made the most change. We've changed the base class of the application service. So if you're familiar with the app service as part of our model,
Yes.
we changed the base class to call it service instance because we're getting into operational processes like factories.
Yeah.
Like I talk to car companies.
Yes.
I talk to companies that do oil refineries.
Yes.
And candy bar manufacturing.
Right.
Telecommunications, they're managing the networks and towers and radios on the towers to get, to deliver their services.
Right.
So the things we're doing are expanding outside the walls of the data center.
Right.
So application service is not a good name for those extended things, right? So we had to kind of look at a whole new dimension of how do I describe a factory and break it down to factory lines and then cells and then devices on each cell in the factory.
So application service traditionally would be more of like dynamic CI grouping.
It's really like an app instance. Think about it this way. So like an instance of ServiceNow, you have of course the URL, the instance you get, but you might have also associated with that the configured connectors. You have the configured mid server.
Right.
If you use ITOM. So that's the app stack.
Okay.
Or if it's a J2E, so the app service is really the instantiation of the application and all its underlying resources.
Right. So all we've done is we've renamed app services to service instance.
Well, we still have app services, so we don't break the way they work and the names of the different types of app services. Like we have a tags-based app service, we have a dynamic one, we have a calculated one. And service mapping uses it pretty heavily, right? We didn't change those. We just changed the base class ones so that we create new types, which are network service instances. Like if I have a network topology, like if I'm a telecommunications company, like Vodafone or AT&T or T-Mobile, I can actually define all of the devices to deliver telecommunications services out to my customers and monitor them.
Right.
And if they fail, I know what customers might be impacted.
Right.
But yeah, the classic app service doesn't work for that. It's just the name doesn't, it's not an app service. It's not an application, right?
Yes. So that's a good change. And then lastly, this green bit, sales and support models.
Yes. So that's the service consumption domain of data. And that's all about who is consuming what, and then being able to tie the use of those technologies to groups of users, either an Active Directory group or everybody in this location, like everybody in this building may not be able to get in the building if the building technology fails.
Right.
Like the badge won't work.
Of course.
So as we extend, the notion of who we're supporting, that's kind of the capture for that context.
So this is new in CSDM 5?
No, that was there.
Okay.
And we do have, we want to also put in sold product there. That was in some early versions.
Yes.
But we took that out of 5 because we couldn't get it done.
All right.
Well, you go to the next page and I'll talk a little bit about that. So,
all right.
So in that, I'll start down here in the green area. In that catalogs area, we do have sales catalog, but the CSM product, we have CSM, so you could do customer service management.
Of course,
and you articulate who is the customer, what's the product that they buy, right? What are they entitled to? So that information was not able to be extracted from the CSM product and made common in this time frame. So we pushed that out till next year.
Which is CSDM 6.0.
That's right.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So okay, we look out for that.
So, I'm a product manager. I have a backlog. I have things I want to do. And that's one of the things that we're still trying to plan and get the sold product in there and the install base item to be out of the box and useful. Even if you don't have CSM, you can still bring that data in from the other sources for analysis purposes.
Right. I also noticed this cloud.
Yes.
That's come in.
So that's where the service instance, came in to change the app service, which used to be there. And then the service delivery system really gets into the different types of industries that have different types of items. Like telecommunications, it's all about radios and network virtual functions. But if you're a factory, you've got PLCs and relays and spray painters for cars and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So there's different types of delivery systems to get the product out, to be able to manufacture it and then deliver it.
Right.
So that's what the service delivery system gets into in the next slide. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
And the other thing that small change, right? I mentioned the value stream there,
Mm-hmm.
and then the technology management services. These are the folks that manage those underlying components.
Mm-hmm.
So we changed the name of that one too. Those are the two big changes: is the main name of the technology management service and then service instance.
I see.
The functionality remains the same.
Yeah.
But it helps customers to better orient what they're doing and managing and how it works
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
This picture, the colorful picture, has been from the get-go when CSDM was first launched, and you've played around a little bit with the colors.
A
But
little bit.
yeah, if I'm a layperson coming upon CSDM for the first time, I think the way, is it correct to summarize it that when you build a service from start to end, the way ITIL defines it, you have these now 5 domains actually,
Yep.
starting with the design phase of building a business capability.
Well, even ideation now.
Oh, yes, so
Yeah,
ideation,
yeah.
of course. So a product owner would be the persona
Mhm.
that would be concerned about planning a product
That's right.
idea. And then once it passes through that phase, you'd go to a enterprise architect
Yep,
or a digital product owner
that's right.
to design that business capability. And therefore, you'd need a entity called business application, information object to track that phase.
Yeah, so it describes the information that you will contain.
Yes.
Is it sensitive information? And if it is, you got to worry about who has access to it down the line, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if it's also something that can't cross country borders,
Yeah.
right? If this is information that has to be stored in one country and not exported, right? So all of those concerns, like regulatory concerns, mostly, that information can be caught right up in there.
Right. And then moving on to this is the DevOps piece where
Yep.
there are people building the design for the solution now.
That's right. So
Yeah.
now if you think about it from the funding process, now you're going to fund an application, you need to staff the team that's going to build it.
Yes.
And then of course they've got source code repositories, they got artifacts they're creating, they're downloading stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we also added one more thing, which is the SBOM at the very bottom, because when they download all this, all the libraries to build something,
Right.
we're tracking that at a very detailed level. So we've added software bill of materials to the common model.
Right.
So to get that functionality and the data model, you had to before buy vulnerability response. There was no other way.
Yes.
They separated it out, so now we can make it common. You can get to it, and we can use it now for other purposes.
Right. So then the last bit here, the orange one, where you have the application service, which is now
Yes.
service instance owner, the service delivery owner, and service provider. And this is the main crux of the whole infrastructure.
This is where we
Yeah.
get into kind of the ITOM and the folks that provide the stuff that you don't see. It's under the
Yes.
covers, the networking services, the storage services, the compute. And then there's some things like Active Directory,
Yes.
it has a huge impact if it goes down, or middleware, I call it, like Dell Boomi or MuleSoft. And there's all kinds of products that are sort of behind the scenes,
Yeah.
but they have to work.
Right.
But there's no direct business impact,
Right.
right? It's usually a lot of things are going to go down if this stuff fails.
Mm-hmm. And at the bottom here, you have the foundation data.
Yep.
Which is the kind of, it gels everything together, like your user groups, your business processes.
That's right.
And all of it, and that shouldn't be ignored because you need that.
Well,
yeah.
And when we talk about implementing CSDM, or at least looking at your data from a crawl, walk, run, fly.
Yeah.
But we start with that foundation.
Yes.
Because if you don't have good location data, how can you tell where a person is or a server is, or these more advanced use cases need that data,
Yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to jump to this one. You mentioned crawl, walk, run. So if I were a newbie and I'm just kind of stumbled upon CSDM,
Yes.
your best practice is to do this.
Do it in this fashion, right?
Yeah.
And we find that there's, like, for example, you already may have a corporate source for location hierarchies.
Mhm.
But if you don't, you got to have to put locations together and govern the locations so that you have a nice hierarchy.
Yeah.
And then you can say, these are buildings, these are, states and countries. And, I have customers that have different planets in their location hierarchy, NASA.
Yeah.
So the location hierarchy has to be consistent. And not only that, but don't allow people to just create new locations, which are duplicate
Right.
and they don't fit into the location hierarchy. That's an important part of getting your foundation right, so the rest of the stuff works properly. Crawl brings in the business apps, which are the planners, like the architects that are
Yes.
planning, like doing M&As and like my old job, right?
Yeah.
And then the folks that own the current state of the CMDB. So those guys work together really well to make CSDM work, right?
Right.
So otherwise, operations folks don't understand data models very well.
Yes.
And vice versa, right? The guys that understand modeling don't understand operations very well. So,
Mhm.
but putting them together, magic happens.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you slowly start walking, which is
That is getting your technical services in order, which is allows you to understand who's responsible for the network. Or do you break it down by building? You got different people and different teams that are responsible for network in this building versus the other building that you might have.
right.
Or servers, or, you know, all of those technical resources that are underpinning everything need the ownership established and the lifecycle management of that stuff properly established.
Right.
And then we've got Run, which is really the business services and who's consuming it from an employee perspective. And then Fly, that's kind of like the coding on the top, the sugar on the top.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of flesh out the outer edges of the model. But this is not cast in stone.
Right. You could change the way it
Absolutely.
works for you.
And but what we just found is that bringing in the foundation data early is a usually good idea, because you know you need that for everything else. And then the crawl stage brings the EA together with the operations folks to
Right.
really, I call it the bookends,
Yes.
like the start of the process and the end of the process,
Right.
and then the feedback loop, right, for the data. So
Right. Yes. So this is kind of quite informative. I mean, I've been an implementer for a long time, but it's good kind of to know what it all connects to. So if people were to connect with you, Mark, you have your knowledge sessions planned at for CSDM
yes.
at K25 next
Yes.
month. You're going to be there in person.
Mhm.
Is there any tips on what they should attend, or, you know?
Yeah, so we have a number of sessions. We're going to have a booth in the middle of the floor. We're actually now considered part of platform.
Okay.
So we'll be in the center of the show floor under the platform area. So you'll have a CMDB booth as well as a CSDM booth, and Scott Lem is going to be manning that one.
Okay.
I have a CSDM 5 session. Unfortunately, it's full.
Okay.
It filled up in like a week.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do standing line, only, which is possible. A lot of folks don't get to those sessions, so you might get in if you show up early in the front of the line for the standing room.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have a lot of YouTube videos that are available.
Okay.
Over 70, almost 1 million views on
Yes.
those videos. And so a lot of this detail is available there, and we're going to be creating new ones for CSDM 5 that you'll see as well very shortly.
Right. Thanks for all the tips there. And now I think we're going to move on to the meatiest portion of this session.
Yes.
I think we've had such a good chat that we didn't have no idea how many minutes we have left now. But process mining with CSDM, you
Yeah.
and I have been collaborating for last few months to understand.
Almost 6 months, I guess.
Almost 6 months
Yeah.
now, because a lot of our customers and people who attend these sessions have asked us, can I do a CSDM with process mining? How do the two go well together, and in what way? So this is a few slides and a demo that we've come up with, of course, courtesy your help, that I've been able to put it all together here. So the tables targeted would be CMDB CI, but you don't stop there. You just kind of go to the extension of that, which is the service table.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, there are 3 types of services. So this one, service instance, which is renamed from
Yeah.
application service,
Yep.
and it ought to be kind of maybe CMDB CI group or application service.
There's subtypes of that. Yep.
Yeah, so there are different names for the same thing, actually.
Well, what it is a classification hierarchy. It's like, phyla, genus. It's like classifying life.
Yes. Yeah.
But here we're classifying a CI. That the base class of a CI, it gets
Yes.
classified into a service versus, what type of service is it?
Of course,
Right.
yes.
Is it a tree versus a living being?
Right. So
Or-
there are 3 main types, though. One is the service instance, which
Yeah.
was historically application service.
Yes.
Then there is a technical service, and there is business
That's
service.
right. And those are all at peers of each other. And then the dynamic CI group and the application service are subtypes of the service instance.
Of course.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it just keeps going, right? So that little
Right.
that little plus that you see in the first box, that's what that means. You kind of
Yes,
keep
you can
going.
open it, yes.
Yeah.
So these, if you were to do process mining, then you need to know this schema back of your head.
That's right. And you gotta know at least some level of detail. So you're targeting the right object, that's the right record, right?
Yes,
In getting the right kind of detail out of it.
Yes,
Yes.
perfect. And then if I'm an operations manager, for example, if I'm an incident manager, then behind the scenes, all the CMDB and service tables, I don't care about unless, the operational impact of it is more evident through incident,
That's right.
problem, or change.
Well, that's our root. That's our root. That's where we started, right?
Yes.
And now the CI tells us what's the change against.
Yes.
What's the problem against? It gives us the context of the incident.
Right. So the data fields on these tables are service offering, CI,
Yes.
and the assignment group that kind of ties together with your CSDM model, right?
That's right. And those are the core from a best practice perspective. Some people don't even have the configuration item exposed.
Yeah.
So that's the first real objective, is to be able to change your incident and change processes to have a CI.
Right.
You know, I can't tell you how many customers don't even have it showing up. And I'm like, and we know through evidence that if you don't look at the CI level details, you're not going to be able to assign the group properly.
Right.
Because you don't know who owns the CI. You don't know if it's a if it's a network problem, is the app problem, is a storage server problem, who knows?
Yes. So that's the basic start point then.
Yeah.
And then if I were to use process mining with CSDM, so there are plenty ways you could do it, but the three that we discussed in our sessions was that if your stakeholders don't know the importance of CSDM, you could use process mining to highlight the pain points and therefore get them engaged and take their buy-in for implementing CSDM.
That's right.
Then the second was that once you start implementing CSDM, you want to visualize how your services are being built up gradually in crawl, walk, run. And that's another second use case that you use process mining to kind of implement CSDM. And lastly, we discussed about this compare function in process mining that helps you see before and after. So before,
I think that's the best one.
That's the best one, actually,
Of
because
course.
for ops people, it's like, oh, what value did I add after process mining or process improvement? Is because before CSDM, look at your metrics, and after CSDM, and that's kind of proving the value of CSDM and the evidence of it.
Well,
right?
yeah, and we've done some research on this, and we know that if you have a mature data model, your metrics for some of these common problems, incident change problems management, get better.
Yes.
So we sort of see that a little bit. This gives you the empirical evidence on your instance.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. So I know you're quite excited about the product. So let's dive into what you and I have been doing for the last 6 months.
Yes.
So this table here is the incident table, and every screenshot has the name of the table I've used. So here, if you see, we have basically mined the incident table, and we've put activity as CI. So wherever the CI changes, it kind of gives you that. So here it's 0 seconds, and that's the ideal that the incident could map the CI field automatically.
Yes, and that's important because if you have event management, we have so many products.
Of course.
If you have event management, if it ties to CI, you can probably rest assured that the incident is on the right CI. But if you don't have an event, or if you don't even have the CI,
right?
What do you do?
Of course,
Yeah.
So, but here you see 9 hours just to cut to the CI.
Yeah.
And then it also shows you it goes in weeks sometimes here on the histogram.
Well, that's because it takes a while to figure out root cause. What was really going wrong?
Yes.
And if you don't have the service map, which all the CIs in the service consumer that called, right? There's a meeting of the detailed CIs. Like I said, some of these customers have 22 million of them.
Right.
Right? Which one is the one that's going down based on the caller and what they've logged, right?
Right. So, and here you see the loop, like the CI keeps updating on the incident form.
That's right.
So the agent probably doesn't know and first puts in some CI, then somebody else comes in.
Yes.
They update the CI.
Another common bad practice is they have a generic CI because it's on the form, and we just create this placeholder CI, which is so generic and really not really relevant.
Right. So this would be a good pain point to show it to your executive to get the
That's right.
sponsorship for implementing CSDM.
That's right.
And then on this one, what I want to stress on is, again, there is CI is being changed, but you can see that it's taken 2 weeks. There's this feature in process mining called records to and from. So if you click on any box on the process map, any node, you're able to find where the records are going to and where they're coming from. So here, if you see, I've been able to kind of do a bit of analysis. So the service desk, 62% go back to service desk to
Yes.
to update the CI
So,
again.
so that's the point, is that, you know, is it yours? No, it's not yours.
Yeah.
And it comes back to me. And then is it yours?
Yeah.
You know, so you're kind of like, you know, whack-a-mole. It's like,
Yeah.
you're just passing the buck.
Yes.
You're not isolating, you're not getting to the root cause on the first try.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a kind of a biggest pain point of not doing CSDM, which is evident through using process mining.
Yes.
And then lastly, this is multi-hop analysis, and I'll show that in my demo as well. So you see how the assignment groups are changing on the incident table here, and you could save time by doing CSDM, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I have a name for that. I call it the hot potato. It's like, it's not mine, it's yours. Oh, it's mine.
Yes, yes. And the more you can do these types of analysis,
Yeah.
you feel that, okay, this is a pain point.
Yeah.
And of course, this is something I'll show in my demo, how you can set up a multi-hop.
Yes.
But for now, I think I'll just keep zooming past. So another pain point here we see is the updated by field. So now I'm mining CI table, all right? And then I have this field called updated by. And if you notice that keeps changing. So you mentioned that some of the things have to be done by system, humans not needed.
That's right. Our whole ITOM visibility and all these service graph connectors are bringing data in from many sources.
Right.
Yes.
So if the updated by field changes, meaning that it was updated by system, and then the human went in and played around with it.
I got to tell you a story. I mean, this is a problem that I saw when I was at Dell. We had multiple humans updating the same record.
Right.
They were just overwriting each other. You know, one day it was wrong. Okay, I don't know how it changed, but I'll just overwrite it with what I think it is.
Right. So if this updated by comes up like too many times in your process mining, and it tells you where it's coming from, then you can also see the class here. So which CI class is showing this bad behavior.
Yes.
And you can justify the presence of CSDM and how it will help you through process mining.
Well, that and you may not know that folks that there are so many sources, or the fact that they are overwriting each other, which erodes trust in the data at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
So you should only have one good source.
Yes.
And if you do have multiple sources, you got to work that out, right? You may not even know you have people overwriting each other.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a very strong use case. And then I remember you mentioned that if you ever mine the CI table, there are millions of CI.
That's right.
So instead of like mining everything, you mentioned there's something called principal class.
That's right. This is a really important thing, because I mean, all the different types of CIs, there's only probably a dozen that people need to ever really look at.
Right.
Everything else is a bit kind of like noise, right? The backend people, the folks that are managing stuff on the back end might know, but from a service desk perspective, you never have to show those.
Right.
So principal class allows you to create kind of, these are the 12 that they should look at, like server, you know, service. So you could pick those principal classes, and that puts a filter into your incident and change forms.
Right.
The other ones don't show up.
Right.
So you limit the choices available to the users by just saying these are principal classes.
Right. So when I create my process mine project, I could say here principal class is true.
That's right.
And that's how you can focus just on that.
Right.
And that way it's a much more like scoped analysis.
And it's scoped to what humans are using in the forms and the processes are all across the platform, right? But if you don't set it, you'll never have it to be useful. So
absolutely. So that's a good breakdown and a filter condition as well.
Yeah, it's a good best practice.
Yeah.
We're creating an AI agent to help you set that, by the way.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Maybe the next session.
I'm a product manager, right? It's like 1 foot's in the future, but yeah, we're creating a bunch of AI agents to help get that data sorted out.
That would be cool. And lastly, these bad patterns that rework ping pong on the CI table, you see that there are repeats.
Yeah.
So that CIs are retired and then again brought back to.
Oh, I can't tell you. I mean, sometimes it's just down for maintenance. You discover it, so you mark it retired.
Yes.
But then it comes back up.
Yes.
Or somebody just unplugs it because they're moving it from data center to data center. You know, and it's retired. No, it's not really. It's like, what is going on? Is
Yeah.
it really there or not, right? You got to get to a definitive answer here.
Yeah. So process mining would expose all these bad behaviors and patterns in your data.
That's right.
Then the next step is you have a buy-in from your stakeholders and you do implement CSDM.
Yes.
Then you gradually implement, not like a big bang.
Yeah, you can't really
Yeah.
just can't do anything big
Yeah.
bang here.
So
Yeah.
in that era, then you could then use process mining to visualize your services. So now I'm mining the service table here, and I can see how my CIs are being built gradually, and also my services being mapped here. So application service, technology service, and also my business services gradually being mapped. And I could also do these kind of pattern detection using process mining on the service table
That's
now.
right.
And lastly, this multi-dimensional map, where I'll show this in the demo as well, but there is a service table, which is a parent, and the child is a technology service, it's a business service, or a application service, which is service instance.
Yeah, those are the different subclasses. Yep.
And you can see that how your CSDM is gradually transitioning from crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, and I'll have to say a lot of customers don't really get to all of them.
Yeah.
They'll like the customer I spoke with this morning only didn't have any technology services.
Okay, all
None.
right. Yeah.
I'm like, well, there's a lot of reasons for it, and we
Yeah.
went into that discussion, but yeah.
Yeah. And then you can see here that I've put the incident table along with service table on the same map here. And wherever the services are attached, there are better behaviors on the incident table as opposed to not attaching service. And we probably in the demo have a good use case to display at the end of the hour. So I think we're going to go over today, but I'm just going to give a shout out to Dan. Dan, just a time check, and I do have a 10-minute demo, but I think we've been very chatty today. Is it okay if we go over a little bit?
Please definitely go over. I'm going to have to leave, but I haven't been all that helpful in answering the questions because most of them are for you, Mark. They're more CSDM related than process mining related.
I figured.
I will just say while the demo is playing, right? It's a recorded demo, right, Roz? I would say while the demo, you're playing the recording, if you guys could just check out the Q&A and maybe answer some of those. And if there's some that you think you want to answer live after the recorded demo, that would be great.
Yes.
And I've been trying, to those who've been asking for like, will this be recorded? The answer is yes. We usually post the recording on the Academy site within a week. So I put a link to where you will find the recording when it gets out there. And we'll also share the slides on that same page in the community site. Great job, guys. Really engaging. There's lots of questions for you to answer when you get a second to answer them. So it's a topic that everyone has appreciated today.
Oh, excellent.
All right, so let's go into Q&A then, because we won't get you back in here, Mark, so make a best use of your time. So the first question is, CSDM is a great across ServiceNow products. Is there a way that the customer can leverage it across enterprise to keep consistency in enterprise architecture model?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I am very involved in the open group, TOGAF and Archimate sort of forums, and I have planned next year to donate CSDM to become a new standard. Part of that reason is we want to incorporate CSDM or expand Archimate or TOGAF into incorporating what CSDM represents, right? So there's a lot of things on the plan, I've always got like 5-year visions that I try to execute to, but that's one of them that we're probably going to tee up for next year.
Right. So that one's a great answer then. And then the next one is about one question here is there a training path to become a SME on CSDM?
Absolutely. So there's 2 key resources. One, there's current training out there today and now learning. But that's going to be updated to 5, some of the new content we just went over today.
Yeah.
And there's also over 70 videos that I've recorded on various concepts within CSDM. So we deep dive things like the technical services, or what's the difference between a business service and an app in a technical service, for example. So plenty of self-service things on the video. On the videos as well. So
so that would be a great help for them.
Yeah, and now learning. I mean, now not learning. It's now create.
Yes.
So Now Create is another place. It's part of Now Learning, but it's actually different, but it's a whole bunch of resources you can download for examples and best practices and all that stuff.
Right. So we'll put all the links on for them on the
Yeah,
community site. All
yeah.
right, that's great. And the next one is within the build and integration domain, are there any additions or nuances to be incorporated to address the physical building of things that are different from building software?
So like cars or candy bars and
Yes.
yeah, so that is we are going in that direction. We're tackling it, I would say, from the lowest layer out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're tackling it from what I would call the digital product, which is the software and hardware that runs in the data center, and OT devices that run software, and the devices that may not run software. So we're kind of growing it from that seem to be out. From a development perspective, you're talking about designing airplanes and ships and candy
Yeah.
bars, so it gets a little outside the software realm.
Mm-hmm.
But we are looking at hardware bill of materials.
Right.
So for what is handed off to be managed, like PLCs, sensors, relays, that kind of thing, we are moving in that direction to create hardware bill of materials next year.
Right. So that's good news. And
Yes, instead of just software bill of materials.
yes,
Yeah.
we'll bring you in again for that specific session. The next one is, will there be specific use case scenarios that provide examples
Yeah.
of CSDM
So from a timing perspective, we made the cut on 5 for Yokohama,
Mhm.
whatever we would have out of the box in Yokohama and a little bit more later.
Yeah.
And there are example models in Now Create and also videos that are being updated now with the new 5 constructs. So we
Right.
are doing that now.
All right. And then here it is, Mark, you mentioned meeting with manufacturing customers. How do you see CSDM being used while a new manufacturing process is being built
Yes.
and commissioned, being brought online?
Yeah, so I will say that that's probably the hottest bed customers. It seems like in the manufacturing space, there's no CMDB equivalent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's impacting the ability to manage the factories, as a whole.
Yeah.
And so I am talking to a lot of companies.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Germany, Munich, as a matter of fact, earlier this week, talking to one. Yeah, you can imagine who that might be.
Right.
And I talked to all the other major manufacturers in the US.
Right. So in the future, you would incorporate some insights into
Yes, but
what
car
they've done.
manufacturers, candy bar manufacturers, literally, also beer,
Yeah.
manufacturers.
Right.
So the interest is through the roof, I would say. But
Right.
so absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
We'll have those examples coming in.
Yeah, perfect. The next one is, will you slide be sent to participants? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
yeah.
sure. We'll send that over. And then the next one is, I don't believe that there is a current filtering capability that allows you to select principal classes true. So I think this could be a backlog item for us in process mining. I've
Yeah,
checked with
we
my
found a
engineer.
few things while we were working together that we
Yes.
needed to address. So
Maybe in Yokohama, because
Yeah.
if you're not on the recent release, then some features may not be
yeah,
there.
yeah,
But if you are in the recent releases, then you will have updated by, you'd have the class filter.
that's right.
All right. So, and then the next one is, oh, thank you. All right. Right. So I guess we've covered all the questions now. Are you sharing mining? I see your mouse moving, but the screen's all green. So I hope my screen's being shared properly. But Dan would have told us. All right, so the questions are done now. I'm actually going to go into the tips portion. So if you want to quickly talk about the tips for CSDM and summarize it there, Mark. So
Yeah, pretty self-evident on that one, but service mapping really helps to understand how those CIs are connected to one another to form an instance of something, whether it's a factory or an instance of an app or an instance of a platform and instances of stuff on the platform, right?
Right.
Those are the examples that I mentioned. All those are downloadable, but that we do have now, I would say, health dashboards that help to check that the information is all together, right? That you can trust it.
Right.
So definitely look at those help dashboards too. Synchronize groups so that, based on what you've filled in, support groups. So there's establishing the technology services, the technology management services, the offering, and the dynamic CI groups helps to get the ownership assigned to all the CIs.
Right.
That's the crawl walk, that's the walk phase.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you assure you can get to the right assignment group, okay? When you identify the CI, it automatically picks the CI's assignment group.
Right.
So if you
okay.
get the right CI, you get the right group.
Perfect.
No more ping
So it's
pong.
all automated then,
Automated,
yes, okay.
yeah.
And that's the link there?
That's the link. And then the focus on principal classes, don't put, like we talked about that. Ownership is critical. If you don't know who owns it, don't bring it in. That's kind of my rule of thumb.
Right.
Don't bring in data that you don't know who owns it, because then you're just going to be there forever and nobody knows what to do with it.
Right.
Leverage automated tools, service mapping, obviously, workspace, there's Service Ops workspace, and foundational data dashboards, which are the ones that we ship, right? We got two. One's called Data Foundations Dashboard. The other one's CMDB Health Dashboards. Those are available, and I've got videos on how to use those in my list.
So they can find your videos to the links, right?
Yeah, I have a playlist. So I curate our playlist. So as we add new videos, so the support playlist is huge.
Right.
But so I have a subset of that. So it's a playlist that that you can find called Data
All
Foundations.
right. So we'll stick that in.
Yeah.
And lastly, digital portfolio management. So you recently contributed towards an open source white paper.
That's right. And that's really shifting to that product mindset and creating sort of a taxonomy of these different types of digital products. The four are the ones that you sell, the ones that your employees use, okay? The ones that are foundational, like the network services and things like that. And the last one we just added that was a little different was manufacture and delivery. That's the OT stuff, or the telecommunications. Or oil refinery and distribution, right? So all of the OT stuff is now part of that paper, and it's aligned very well with how we're thinking in CSDM and ServiceNow.
So we'll stick that link to your white paper in the pack so people can have it. And I think now is a demo, but I think we've run out of time, but I don't mind just turning the demo on.
Let it run.
And probably people who are sticking around still will enjoy the demo, and the others can look at the recording. All right, so you remember, Mark, how we set up process mining is first going to the process configuration, and
that's installed by default now.
Yes, so if you go in, and these are the tables you could mine, but you don't see any CSDM or service table there, and you click on the use process configuration builder there, and then you can just very quickly create a new one. So it's not a big deal. So just create a new one, and this will help all your other team members who are mining as well. So it's a one-time exercise. So everyone can leverage the benefits of using process configuration. It asks you what are the fields you want to use, and you say, okay, I want to use, say, the operational status of a CI, or I want to use, say, the support group, whatever fields you're interested in mining. You just point those fields here, very quick and easy. And there is one session coming up in June where my team will explain the benefits of this process config builder in detail. But for today, we'll keep it quick and easy. Then you put assign to if you wanted to define which group will be working on a record. And lastly, for breakdowns, you can I think the famous breakdowns are business criticality of a service, then service classification, where it tells you which type of service it is. And lastly, the support group, I suppose, is the good breakdown that people would want to mine data on. And once you add those breakdowns, then you need to add child tables if you're interested in mining all the child services. And this is where there's a very important step here where you could add the three types of services we discussed today. So the first one being the, I think it is the technology service. So CMDB CA service, and I think the offshoot of, so we are first picking up the technology service. And once you pick that up, what is the relationship? And this is a very important step. More type of service is the business service. And here, the type of relationship is parent. So make sure you select the first option, which is the parent. And this is to create the multidimensional map. It's better to do it at this stage. Technology done, business done. Now the last one is of course service instance, which you said is renamed from application services.
That's right. That's something we did in Yokohama.
Yes. And once you put that in, then the relationship again is duplicate of. So once you set all this up, then everything else is pretty much a no-brainer. And you save it. You can skip all the other steps and jump to the next step by clicking on the blue button there. Investigative features, just ignore them. Go to the next step, ignore that. And then these are the patterns that the machine has now given you out of the box without you using your brains. And you can unselect a few patterns you're not interested in, but I'd select all of them and add them. And this is how the patterns get added to your initial setup. And you can use this now for mining multiple projects on CMDB CI service table. So go to your process mining workspace and create a new project where you're going to mine the service table. So this is also nice and easy. You can just name it whatever you like, and then point it to the right table, which in this case is the service table. Yeah, so server comes up, but I think that's the one. Yeah, and then you create a project. And activities, as I mentioned, you can add your operational status, or if you want to see the transition of that, or you can even add support group transitions on your service table if you wanted to.
So these are all the steps to create what you showed
yes,
in the presentation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I had screenshots on. People sometimes say, how did you create that? So I'm just trying to help people out by giving a live demonstration of updated by as a new feature in Yokohama. You could not, so it groups the updated by because the process map will be gigantic.
Yeah.
So you just, by default, it groups the updated by.
Yep.
This is a new feature in Yokohama. But I'm not interested in updated by for now. I just go with support group and save it. And then here is the transition. If you want to just have multi-hop CIs, then this is a new feature of Yokohama. You could put a transition filter where you'd say support group is anything, and you save it. Just name it group is anything. So if you want to identify multi-hops in your CI, then this filter will only focus on CIs that were multi-hopping and not anything else. And then step 2 is that support group is anything, and all occurrences of it, and you can name it support group is anything again. So if the group keeps changing, then you'd be able to spot it on the process map, and you're not mining for anything else. You're just mining for this one filter, and eventually followed by should be the relationship, and you save it. For now, I just don't want to go into that. I just wanted to show that feature of how to do multi-hop. And then breakdowns, of course, as I mentioned before, business criticality, service classification, and you could do support group if you wanted to, and add them as breakdowns. And after this step, then use cases is where whatever setup you did, now these are the benefits. See, the child tables are already displayed there instead of you having to do the add.
Define them.
Yeah, and your team members who are doing process mining, they could also just do it very quickly. Otherwise, you'd have to set up here all over again. So I highly recommend using Process Configuration Builder and just toggling these buttons. So your child tables are beautifully added, quickly and easily. And you just need to ignore everything else. But you see wherever there is asterisk marks on activities is a mandatory field. So make sure you fill out mandatory stuff. So activities on the service instance table is operational status and support group. And then I have also done the activities on the other service, which is technology service, but the same activities you could pick operational status and the support group if you wanted to. You can pick other fields that you have in your instance, but these are the recommended ones. And save it. And lastly, business service, where activities has the asterisk mark. So you must fill out activity. Everything else is not mandatory. And here, yeah, operational status and support group are the two activities we are interested in mapping on the process. All right, so I think this is the most important step. And then once you're done with step 2, then everything is nice and easy. Step 3 is just bringing those patterns over, which machine learning gives you out of the box. The root, not the rule-based, but the automated one. These are the machine learning patterns. And just add them into your projects. That's how easy we've made it. Click on review and mine, and make sure that everything's correct. Do a full mine. And that's where the service table is being mined now, with not just service, but also its child tables, like the technology service, the service instance, and your business service. So you're basically doing a multi-dimensional map, but it's like less than 10 minutes job to create this, these patterns show up then, that there is rework on your services being operationalized, then retired. That's a very quick pattern detection. Then the process map has come up here with your service table in the middle, and all the child tables, business service, your technology service, and your service instance come up on the same page for you to do the crawl, walk, run analysis for CSDM. So that's how easy it is. Make sure that your breakdowns that you put show up here: business criticality, service classification, and support groups. So if you wanted to filter on those, you could just refresh the process map based on these filters. Business criticality is critical, not critical, and so on. And service classification are the 3 types of services if you want to filter your map based on that. So here, actually, I have now flipped to the incident table. So if you see here, this is incident service analysis, which is basically on the incident table where I'm putting a filter, conditional filter for incidents created, say, before 1st of October, when I did not implement CSDM, okay? And I apply it, a task runs in the background, and let it run. It comes in the timer button here. And then I create another conditional filter for incidents that were created after 1st of October, when you have implemented CSDM now gradually, and you want to see whether it's beneficial or not. So you would then do the same thing, create it after so-and-so date, which is 1st of October. And then you can see on one page the before and after compare and the value of CSDM. So the 2 tasks that were running in the background, you pick them up from here, and then you click on view result and save it as a filter set. Okay, so you name this filter as
Before and after picture.
Yes, before CSDM or before you change your process, and you save it. And the other filter, which is click on view result, check the filter criteria, because that could be sometimes misleading. And once you check the filter criteria, click on view result, then again save another filter set, which is for after CSDM, right? So this is where there's a, the value, evidence of the value created by CSDM.
Yep.
And then you just have to do a compare. So click on the compare button. And on one page, you see that before and after. So you just have to see on the left side of the page is before, on the right side of the page is the after you do CSDM. And that's very beautifully portrayed here using process mining. So if you click if you see here, it's the awaiting caller on the left side. The incidents are awaiting caller before CSDM. After CSDM, you don't have much of awaiting caller.
Doesn't even show up.
Right, yes. So that's the value of CSDM. And not just that, if you have this comparison statistics clicked, then it basically shows you on one table how it all comparison statistics. You see how the process has improved with average duration of incidents have gone down after CSDM,
Yep.
median duration has gone down, and standard deviation has also gone down. So this is a value that the CSDM implementation brings to the table, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I think that's about it, guys. And sorry for the long haul to today, but because Mark's here in person, we want to make sure that we make use of his time and pick his brains. These are some of the process mining resources. Do look it up. It's all Google Process Mining Academy, and you'll find all the videos there and all these cool resources and links to that. There is in the month of June, we'll come to you with deep dive on process configuration builder. I showed some of it today, but I didn't do a good job of explaining everything. So one of our team members would present to you in June that topic. And then in July, we have process mining with the incident security response. So make sure you dial in, and thanks so much for your participation and for waiting 20 minutes over. And Mark, thanks so much for coming in person. I really appreciate the collaboration and that you made time for us. And you need to sign up for our upcoming sessions as well. So thanks everyone, and we leave you here and see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.